This episode of the BJJ Foxcast is brought to you by BioPro. BioPro is an all-natural alternative to prescription human growth hormone, which aids in recovery, anti-aging, metabolism, libido, immunity, skin health, cognition, sleep, and stress. Just one vial per day provides a substantial boost to all of these growth factors. Okay, so that's what they want me to say. Here's what I know as an aging grappler. I've been using BioPro Plus and the nighttime variant, BioPro Plus Cortisleep, for several months, and it feels like I've grown a third lung. My gas tank is noticeably bigger, my recovery is faster, and I'm back on the mats much quicker, not just between training sessions, but between rounds. Now you can get $30 off your first order of BioPro when you use the code FOXCAST at www.bioproteintech.com. That's code FOXCAST for $30 off your first order at www.bioproteintech.com. Thank you, BioPro. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the BJJ Foxcast. I am your host, Alex Martinez, and today we have none other than Alex Tojo Kray. Welcome to the show, brother.
Long awaited. I know.
Long awaited.
It's been so long.
It's been forever. Hey, close that curtain so we don't look like hobos.
Well, the glove fits.
Yeah, I know. So I want to acknowledge what an amazing podcast we had with Aaron and my man Jake Watson. And dude, I've been getting a lot of feedback from that one, dude. Like, people are like, oh, you got to do another one with Jake, and you guys need to do more shit, and I could listen to Jake talk jiu-jitsu all day.
So can I.
Yeah, dude.
Jake knows his shit.
Yeah, he does know his shit. And you know what? Like, for a guy that, like, you don't see this out of a lot of, like, local competitors. They're always like, I hate to say catty, right? But they're not going to compliment other people, you know, in their age groups and weights and stuff like that. Yeah. He is nothing but complimentary to everybody, dude. Like, and it's from a, I think it's from a standpoint of, like, being a journalist, right? Being like, he really gives people, like, what are they saying?
Having to be objective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's objective, but he's a very humble dude. Like, he gives people his props. Like, the people that are doing well, whatever it is that they do, like, he always acknowledges that. I really admire that about you. So shout out to Jake, man. Thank you for being on the show, and I can't wait to do more stuff with you.
I mean, plus Jake, like, he always has his finger on the pulse.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
I mean, him and Danny were like perfect together when they're on their podcast because they're both nerds, jiu-jitsu nerds. Yeah, they pay attention to that shit.
Yeah,
and they remember everything.
Everything. Like, oh, this guy fought that guy at Purple in 1926 or whatever.
And I was thinking, like, through that podcast, like, they were kind of going, like, I watch a little bit. I'm a casual nerd. Jake's a super nerd.
Yeah.
Aaron pays attention, and I'm like less than Aaron about it. And
I'm less than you.
And I was like, man, I'm like, Alex is just sitting over here, like, I don't remember any of this shit.
I don't know any of this shit. But I enjoy listening. I enjoy listening to them talk about, you know, because you know, when you talk about, like, Felipe Pena, you know, and you're like, man, it felt like he kind of, I don't want to say he quit, but he didn't want to finish that last match, right? And and then hearing Jake say, it's like, dude, he has nothing left to prove. Right. No one takes that into consideration. They're like, oh, fuck that guy. You know what I mean? Fucking quitter. Not a fucking quitter. He's got nothing left to, like, he probably doesn't want to do this shit at this level anymore. Right. You know, but it's almost like, you know, you're kind of, the expectation is that you do it. And so you fucking do it.
Plus he's kind of, he's got that dog in him. You know what I mean?
Sure,
like, he still like feels like he has to do it.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, in one breath he feels that way, right? But in another breath he's probably like, but do I?
Right.
You know?
You fucking have to do anything you want to do. But yeah, I mean, he's accomplished so much. And after Jake said that, I actually started looking him up. He's accomplished everything, dude. There's nothing left to prove. So that's pretty cool, man. So I had a podcast with Steve Levine from it sounds like a rock star name, doesn't it?
Sounds like a porn star.
Super cool guy, man. He was awesome. Great guest. And he was one of those dudes that, like, he's a talker. So I just had to, like, pull the cord and let him go. It was such a fun podcast. I think that's going to be like 85. Okay. But he was talking about the Nogi spring camp in March. I think it's March 8th, 9th, and 10th. Dude, it's a steal, dude. He's bringing in, like, heavy hitters. I can't name them off the top of my head, but heavy hitters in the Nogi world.
I've seen the little poster thing for it.
$350 for the weekend. Yeah. And it's just all jiu-jitsu for 3 days. That's
from Savages. Yeah.
That's nothing. Yeah. That's nothing. So I'm going. Hopefully Amy can get the time off. She's going. I got a couple of my students going. March 8th, 9th, and 10th. And it's at the Victorium. So it's kind of It's kind of like a good spot, man. I
I love the
other than
Victorian.
parking, you know,
I don't think the Victorian's bad for parking.
bro. You haven't been there during the week. It's horrible. It's
What else is going on over there?
well, I mean, it's gonna be 8th, 9th, and 10th. So I'm assuming one of those days is a Friday. So it's gonna suck.
I don't know. I always park in that, like, there's like across the little desert. There's like a little sidewalk that goes across the desert, and there's a little that cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
I just park in that cul-de-sac.
No, that's cool. Yeah,
A little bit off
I
the
park.
path.
Sometimes I park up on the dirt because my Jeep looks abandoned anyway. So it kind of looks like, oh, that fucker's been there for
Here in
10 years.
Scottsdale, ain't
Yeah.
nobody touching your fucking sheep.
Yeah, there isn't a tow truck in the world that would want to put that on their fucking on the back.
It'd make their truck rust.
I love my Jeep. Shut up. But yeah, so that's going on. Anyway, yeah, we got some tournaments going on
AGF's
coming
in
up.
town.
AGF's in town.
The head of it, I guess.
Yeah, Chris Carlino
He was here at Paul's.
was Brandon with him. Brandon Quick, a lot of tattoos. Really
that
cool
was
dude.
that was who came in.
Oh, okay, that's Brandon. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in. Really, really cool guy, and he was talking about like the rule sets, how like you can contest decisions.
Yes.
Which is like it's like very, very athlete oriented.
Yeah.
Competition, which is like really cool.
You know what the ref's decision is for them? Overtime. Fucking overtime.
I
First
like
one
it.
to score. It's first one to score, if I remember correctly, or if you have like a substantially complete submission. So if you fucking hit an arm bar and they escape, you win.
Okay.
Like if the arm's extended and they find a way to get out, you win.
Yeah.
The only reason I know that is that purple belt. Gosh, who did I fight? I think it was a Jay Page's guy. Super cool dude. But we went into overtime, and I was standing on my head, and I'm pulling on something, and I don't have the arm bar, and I know it, but it looked jiu-jitsu. And so they stopped the match. I was like, "You're kidding me!" And they gave me the win.
Yeah.
Oh man, I did not deserve that.
That
one.
must feel like a kid's fight, you know, where like the arm goes straight.
Yes,
They
yes,
stop
they
the
stop
fight.
it. Yeah, because I did not have that arm bar. Man.
Repping
He
kids
was-
fights is the easiest.
bro. As soon as the arm extends, but
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the one thing. Like, reffing sucks, and like
it's hard.
and like if you look on paper, reffing kids should be the hardest because you have to deal with parents. I don't give a fuck about parents.
I'll tell you what. When I went to, do you remember when Nikeo and Aaliyah and there was a couple, Braden maybe, they went to Kids Pans. It's a long time ago, man. Like pre everything, like maybe 17.
That's when all those kids were like really hard into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. When I was coaching for Paul, I remember, gosh, I think it might have been, who was I coaching at the time? I was about to coach one of the kids, and I've got him like in front of me, and you kind of we were allowed to be by the mats. In IBJJF, that's unheard of, but for the kids they allowed it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of holding him, and there's a guy. He's obviously a parent. He's not a coach. The guy had zero class, dude. Like I wanted to smack him, and he is contesting a match that already finished, and the ref has moved on.
Yeah.
And he's yelling at anybody that will listen. He was just yelling at him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and he starts leaning in. It's got to be Nikeo, but he was like bumping into him, and I grabbed the guy, and I wanted to just fucking shove him. I just want to push him right into the fucking judge's table, but I grab him, and he goes, "Don't you touch me!" I was like, "Bro, I was like, you're embarrassing yourself." I told him that. Like, dude, you're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassed for you. Okay? I'm just trying to coach a kid.
How are you not embarrassed?
Bro, he was just yelling, man. And I can't remember. And it was like the ref was absolutely right. It was an obvious call, but he's a parent, not a coach. So he doesn't.
There's no shit.
He has no idea what he's yelling about, but he's just yelling. Yeah. I mean, one of those guys, that guy, of all the people that I've ever encountered in my life, needed a smack more than anyone that I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those guys that you just want to like.
How do we get on this tangent?
I don't know. Who cares? Where you just want to put your hand on the back of his neck and be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
calm the fuck down."
Yeah.
You know, like one of those like,
Bro.
like dad him.
Yeah. In 30 seconds, no one's going to care.
Yeah. You know, actually, they don't already.
They don't. Even the ref moved on, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was just out of control. And don't you touch me. Oh, shit. Hang on.
I love when at tournaments when like you could just tell the refs are just like, I don't give a fuck.
They're just over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just look at the person yelling at them and they're just stone cold and just like, okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Yeah. Or
Bye.
when somebody's contesting a call and like your guy's down 16-0.
Yeah.
Like why? Why are you even just encourage him? Your guy needs a friend, not a coach.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting and
I'm surprised they let a parent on.
dude, me too. Me too. And those tournaments are tough because, the coaches, for the most part, if they have any experience, they got it down. Like, they don't have to, like, watch your kid every 2 seconds. They're in the bullpen. They'll find them. They know what they look like. But then you got, like, parents corralling the kids, and then they go into the bullpen-ish area, the check-in area, where they're not needed. It's a fucking line. It goes to the same person, and it's, like, corral on each side.
Yeah.
But they feel the need to, be with their... Let me just say, what I notice about kids is when the parent gets them to the point where they need to be, and the parent leaves, you just see the kid just completely relax.
Oh, when the parents are gone?
Yes.
Yeah.
They just because now it's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right? They're worried, mom and dad are like, oh, this is, Skylar is right here, all that shit.
But I've definitely seen kids who, like, can't function without their parents around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
I think it probably depends on that dynamic.
For sure.
Dynamic.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about Nikhil earlier. I remember Nikhil, like, at 5 years old competing and destroying people, and he was crying the whole time. He cried into the bullpen. He cried. Even the referee's like, are you okay? And he just beat the crap out of the kid.
I remember being like a blue belt or something like that. I was talking to Scoop. He was like coaching, or not coaching, reffing. And he was like, I hate fucking doing the kids divisions because it's like they cry. They win, they cry. They lose, they cry. They're always crying. It's so true. They just can't handle the emotion.
I remember Scoop. I can't remember what tournament it was. Maybe like Vegas tournament because he did IBJJF reffing. Like he was a good ref.
I almost remember him almost getting killed once.
Yeah. But I remember he gave somebody a penalty because like they argued something like during their match and he shushed him.
Yeah.
He goes, shh, and he gives him a penalty. I was like, that was fucking gangster, dude. He shushed him.
You're not allowed to talk to the ref. Shut the fuck up.
Freaking talk, man. Yeah. So
it's like, it's weird how like, we were always kind of like, the rules were drilled into our heads when we were coming up.
Yeah.
But there's so many schools that don't fucking have a clue.
No, I always encourage people to read the rule book.
Right.
And one of my students, man, he's 12 years old, and he's telling me like the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm really proud that he's taken that initiative, especially at that young of age.
Yeah.
I got 30-year-olds that are counting on me to tell them what the rules are. Like, you mean all of them? You want me to tell you all the rules?
Right.
Maybe you should read the rule. And I did the rule seminar before, long before I was a brown belt.
Yeah.
But I wanted to learn the rule set because I was a kids coach and I wanted to know what the hell I was doing. The one thing I learned coming out of that seminar was I don't want to be a ref. Yeah. I've done it twice and I know I don't want to be a ref.
It's way more complicated than it looks.
Very complex, dude.
Yeah.
Like, the standing combat rule. I didn't think about that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I knew that, like, if I'm on bottom, you're on top, I stand up and you trip me, like, right away, or I sit down right away, that's not 2 points. Mm-hmm. Right? I knew that. But I didn't realize, like, that's an actual thing. Like, if I come up and I'm up for 3 seconds and then you put me on my ass, that's 2 points.
Yep.
Right? So it's just those little things. But what constitutes standing up? Is it 1 knee, 1 foot? Is it 2 feet? Is it 2 knees? Right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Those are the types of things that they teach you.
Yeah.
I could not ref like
99% of matches. It's like all of that like tedious stuff doesn't fucking matter. But it's like, especially at black belt when people know how to like bend the rules.
Yes.
You have to know.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, it was Kennedy fighting one of the Ares guys. It wasn't Kevin. Gosh, who was it, man? I can't remember. But Kennedy was up, maybe.
It was so featherweight then, right?
Yeah.
That would have to be like Josh or...
No, it wasn't Josh. It might have been Danilo. But Danilo's too big.
Well, he is now, but I think he was.
It might have been. Yeah. But Danilo had him in like an ankle lock. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, and it was deep enough that he would have got the advantage, right? But what Kennedy was doing was he was basically dragging himself out of bounds because that was the correct way to defend, and then they would have started them standing.
Yeah.
So Danilo would have got the advantage because he has the ankle lock, but that's gaming the system. I know that sounds bad, but he's playing within the rule set, but it's still gaming. It's understanding the rule set. And if you got a referee that doesn't know it and like disqualifies him or gives the other guy 2 or something like that, that's That's a problem. That's a problem.
They changed the rules then, right?
What's that?
If you're defending a submission and you just go out of bounds to like defend the submission, you get disqualified.
If going out of bounds is the correct way to defend it, you do not get disqualified.
Right.
But I think the other person gets 2 points.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
because they can't like just reset you into. Like,
that's what it was. So he would have given up 2 points, but still had an advantage. I think that's what it was. So he would have still won the match.
Yeah.
But I think Danilo pulled him back in and finished the match. And I don't think he submitted him, but
because there's that really famous one where the guy's like in a triangle, he picks the guy up and walks out of bounds, and then gets disqualified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And he was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I saw one that was a heartbreaker, man. This is like, remember when we went to Nogi Worlds in like, is it Dale City? Like outside of San Francisco? Just outside of San Francisco.
I don't know.
It was like purple belt days. But there was a guy, it was a fucking badass brown belt match. I can't remember who it was, but these guys are going at each other. The little guys are just flying around. And one dude, he does like a seated. He was in a seated position, and then he came up in an arm drag, right? But he was coming up to his feet in an arm drag, and then he basically jumped on the guy's back, and he sunk in a rear naked choke. Well, in the process, that momentum carried them out of bounds. So he's got 2 hooks in and a rear naked choke, freaking DQ. The other guy was trying not to fall.
Yeah.
And he just stepped out of bounds. He wasn't running out of bounds. He just stepped out of bounds.
Yeah.
DQ. The other guy won. It's like, damn. I mean, I think he would have finished that rear naked choke anyway because it was pretty deep.
Yeah.
But that's a heartbreaker, man, because it was such a fun match to watch. But those are the things that you got to know as a referee, like to properly, to properly ref the match.
Yeah.
And I know I don't want to do that.
I think that's the case where you would give 2 an advantage.
For sure.
Give 2 and then and reset the match.
But it's a deep submission. And the guy did step out of bounds. So technically, it's a DQ.
Yeah, but the whole idea of that penalty is to prevent fleeing.
Right. But you're talking about the rule and not the spirit, right? Or the spirit and not the rule.
Spirit, not the rule.
Yeah. So I mean, the rule is you step out of bounds, you're DQ'd.
I guess.
That's why I can't be a ref, because I'd be like, oh, I can't decide this match. I gotta
let Italo. I wonder what he would do.
Oh man, Italo. He's a good ref.
He's a good ref.
Yeah, he's a really good ref.
One of the ones that just like stays stone cold. He knows the rules.
Yep.
I've never seen him make a decision that was questioned where I thought he was wrong.
Yeah.
Every time I've ever seen someone question, I'm like, you just don't know the rules.
Yep.
So yeah, he's definitely one of the good ones. I mean, I think it's the IBJJF has come a long way over the past decade.
Yeah.
Like I don't know the last time I saw a decision in an IBJJF tournament, especially a big tournament. I was like, I've definitely seen bad decisions at like the small tournaments, but
of course, yeah.
At like Pans, Nationals, Worlds, whatever it is, right? The big stuff. I don't remember the last time I saw a decision where I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, how do you train a ref?
They have to go do all these small tournaments. The more they ref, the better, I think. Because it's like I said, it's like 99% of the time, like someone who's casually aware of the rules could ref.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, kinda.
Well, because like most matches are like really basic stuff.
Yeah, I think if you're not like a super duper sharp ref, I think you should be doing like Masters 3 or 4 and above and kids.
Yeah, where it's like someone's gonna pull guard.
Yeah,
and then they're gonna sit in a guard.
Pretty predictable.
It's gonna be a quick sweep or something, or a submission.
It's not gonna be a multifaceted.
Or they're gonna sit in closed guard for 5 minutes.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a little more predictable than I saw one match. It was a local tournament. It was when it was ABJJF or AZBJJF. There were these twins, and one of them had like a black and green gi, and the other kid had a black and red gi. And one of them had like, I think it was like Typhoon or something like that, and the other one had Hurricane or something like their gi. And the referee lost track of who's who, on points wise, and he raises one kid's hand, and everybody's like, no, and he's like, all right, whatever. He raised the other kid's hand. So that was pretty funny. But they looked identical, dude. The only difference, one had red and one had green on their gi.
I did a Grappling Industries tournament once because they paid us a bunch of money to do it.
Yeah, what's it pay?
It was like $300 or something.
Oh damn, for the day.
Yeah, just a day.
And you don't have to set up or tear down. You just ref and leave.
We just hung out. Yeah, afterwards.
Fuck, that's cool.
Yeah, and they were like, dude, the fucking like rule. They're like, here's the rules. It's basically IBJJF except for blah blah blah. And that was it. It was like 10 minutes.
Oh shit!
And I was a brown belt at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, here's the rules, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Here's 10 minutes of rules, and then good luck.
Yeah.
But like the hardest part is like the small adults, like featherweight, like blue belt, featherweight, lightweight,
yeah,
all those ones, because they get fucking wild.
Yeah.
And like you get in those matches where they're like, where one guy's on top, and then you get swept, and then unsweeps, and then resweeps, and then unsweeps, and they're like spinning, and you're like, wait, who was on top?
Yes.
At first,
Who started on top?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's not an easy job. Yeah.
And I still don't understand the 50-50 sweep.
I don't remember where it's settled, because I know
Yeah.
they've changed the rules on it a couple times, and I'm just like, I'd have to go read it again.
Because nobody wants to watch a 50-50 match. They're so fucking
I
boring.
do.
I don't. They're so boring.
I just want.
This is coming from an old person. I think it's fucking boring. Oh my god.
I like to watch teeter totters.
No. I hate it. So yeah, we got AGF coming up. Like we talked about, the 24th, and they do something pretty unique. They let black belts compete for free. And I actually worked that tournament once. I think I was a brown belt, but I worked the tournament. And I was. And Chris and Brandon were really cool. They were like, "You're here to compete, so that takes priority. So whatever you got to do, just let us know." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool, man." So an hour before my match, I got off. I was doing, I was like scorekeeping.
Yeah.
And then I just let him know. I was like, "Hey, I need a sub," and I did my thing.
Brandon was a really cool guy.
Yeah, he is. Super smart guy.
He competes at in skateboarding.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was at, like one of the things he was like talking about was like, "Any of you guys skateboard?" He's like, "I need to go to a park tonight."
Oh, right on.
Like after class. I'm like, "Well, they're all closed at like 9."
Yeah. I talked to him once, and his Spanish is better than mine.
Yeah.
And he speaks Russian also. I think he's married. I think his wife is Russian.
Because he's from like LA or something, right? But now he lives in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's telling me like, he's like, no one wears flat brim hats out there. Like he's got like the LA style, and he's like living out on the East Coast, like in Florida. I don't even know if you call Florida the East Coast. Florida's Florida.
Florida's Florida. Yeah. Yeah.
But he's like, I feel like a fish out of water out there.
I bet. I didn't know he moved to Florida. He's got Hollywood tattooed on his neck, because I'm assuming he's a California guy. Yeah.
Hopefully. he's from like Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yeah. He had a few schools in Texas.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, he was a gym owner, and he had a few academies in Texas. So yeah, I wonder if he's doing that. I don't know. He might be doing that in Florida. Who knows?
Yeah, I didn't know much. Like I always like in my head, AGF was like Naga or whatever. It's like a small tournament. And like when I visited Louisiana, I realized that like AGF is huge in the South.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's like all of the tournaments are like in the Midwest too. Like it's just like we're kind of spoiled being so close to California and Vegas, where we're like IBJJF or bust, right?
Yep.
But like AGF is actually a really big tournament.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the biggest.
You think?
I think it's bigger. Like as far as like the number of tournaments they do a lot of tournaments.
So does World League.
Yeah.
They do a lot. And I kind of dig what World League, I don't know if they still do it, but they had like, overall winners. They had Elite 8, that type of shit.
I don't like their last score wins thing.
I love that.
I hate
it. Won me a match.
Yeah. That's because you're a bitch.
That's because I read the rules.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you knew the rules. It's like you still got to score last.
I scored last, and the dude I was going against thought he got an advantage. No advantages here, homie.
Advantages.
Yeah. I
don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know. I'm a little torn. I mean, it's a very old school way of thinking. Like, you're going to score a point because you attempted something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But
it's
sometimes,
not attempting something.
Right.
It's
sometimes
like
you actually do it.
Yeah.
Samir said it best. At least to me, it's kind of stuck. He said if a photographer took a picture of it and it looks like what it's supposed to be, it's an advantage.
Yeah.
So if you fall to your butt but you pop right back up, that's sweet. Right? Or, that's an advantage.
Yeah.
So I was like, the only one that I disagree with is that double pull and one person comes up and that's an advantage. That should either be 2 points or 0. I don't understand that rule. I don't get it. Like, double pull, one person pops up.
I get it because they're just trying. It's their way of like promoting progression.
Give them 2 points.
But it's not worth 2 points.
It's not. It's fucking not worth.
It's a guard pull.
Yeah, it's basically it's a guard.
You're
pull.
accepting that they are gonna play the guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. I don't know. I don't mind that advantage.
I hate it,
but I don't know. I like the advantage system better than I like the not advantage. Like I would rather have when I think about like how those tournaments run, I would rather there be advantages than not.
Right.
I think I think the pluses outweigh the negatives.
Yeah. I think what they're trying to get rid of is like the stupid little things with the 50-50 and those stupid little advantages, people going back and forth. Yeah. You know, that type of shit. But you're never going to engineer that out of jiu-jitsu, out of competition jiu-jitsu. And what I'd make the argument that competition jiu-jitsu isn't really jiu-jitsu. I mean, jiu-jitsu is meant to be like, you know, tire the guy out and then choke him to death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that 5-minute timer has ruined that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, God, could you imagine how long tournaments would be if they let you?
It'd be terrible. It'd be unwatchable. So I understand it. I just disagree with it. That's all. I mean, I shouldn't say I disagree. I'm just saying, like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, when you do tournaments, you have to understand that you're not technically doing, you know, you're finding a place to display complex techniques. Where if you're gonna do like a street fight or a no holds barred, it's gonna be pretty simple. There's nobody boloing in the UFC, right? It's, you know, strikes from half guard or strikes from mount, you know, rear naked choke, stuff like that. I mean,
sure,
basic control stuff. You know, they're not, you know. I don't know. It's.
You want to go start a fight tonight?
Let's fucking do it. Let's fucking do it.
How much will you give me if I bolo somebody?
You bolo somebody in the street, and your head will get caught in a curb, and he beats you to death.
That's why you'll be there to prevent that. Be like, all right, I guess I owe you 100.
I'll be too busy watching and laughing. Look at his head bounce off the curb. That's awful. That's awful. Ooh, kicked him. Ooh,
brain trauma.
Nice one. Nice one. Yeah, he earned that one.
I guess I'm going to hang out with Amy a little bit more.
What happened to Tojo? He fucked up. That's what happened to Tojo.
Fucked around.
You got to take that off the table.
Do I?
Yeah. Come on now. This is a family show. By the way, cheers, man. Congratulations on the murdered deer.
Yeah. Speaking of family, he just took someone's dad away.
Listen. That kid, that guy will not be missed.
Someone was like, I hope he's an absentee dad. I'm like, because he's like, oh, I heard you killed Bambi. And I was like, well, Bambi's dad, technically. And he was like, well, I hope he's an absentee dad. I'm like, well, all deer dads are absentee dads.
That's right. They're the I'm going out for cigarettes and never come back.
Yeah.
That's pretty much their life. So he won't be missed.
Nope. So yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that, man. Tell me about the you killed him on the last day of what season?
So there's over the counter. So every year you can buy one tag. Well, so in Arizona you're allowed to kill one.
You
deer
just said 30 words and didn't say a fucking thing.
I know. So you know. I know, because I couldn't decide where I wanted to start.
Sound like me.
Where to start? 2024 over the counter archery only deer tag.
Okay.
Is the tag that I tagged out.
How many days?
So basically, almost every single weekend day, and then so what I usually do for January is I'll request every Wednesday off, because those are the days that I don't train jiu-jitsu, right? Or I don't teach jiu-jitsu, right? Because I don't want to. It's not worth my time to like teach at 6 a.m., get off at 7:15, right? By the time everyone gets out of the school, and then go out to wherever I need. So
yeah, hunting wise, you're talking
hunting wise, yeah. So I'll basically take off every Wednesday for work. And then I plan on being out every Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah. So yeah, but if you did that, if you taught and then headed out, you'd probably be there by the time they're bedded down for the day.
Not necessarily. No? It's just like the best time to be there is be where you want to be, behind your glass as the sun's coming up. It just gives you the biggest opportunity, or the most opportunity, right, to find animals. And like as the sun's coming up, like as that sun hits the hillside is when they're the most obvious. It's the best time to see deer.
Yeah,
because they almost glow on the side of hillsides.
Yeah,
but like as the
What do you mean they almost glow?
They just light up. Their color they contrast more against the dirt.
Yeah.
And because like in general, like midday, like deer could be walking across maybe like 1,000 yards away or whatever. They're walking across this hillside, and they're still kind of tough to see because they're gray.
Yeah,
gray brown, and everything else in the desert's gray brown.
Yeah.
Right. So they're like, if they're moving slow, it's still hard to see them. But and in that like more like right as the sun hits up that like golden hour, they just glow. Like, there's a ton of contrast. So it's like I just it's like don't miss that opportunity if you can't you can help it.
Of all the people that have asked you to take them hunting, how many of them made any progress towards that since last year?
Oh, I don't even like really. I don't even like. I was like, okay, sure. That's all. Like that's it. I don't follow up with anybody.
Of course not. It's not up to you. But how many of them have been like, hey, I bought a bow. Hey,
zero.
I started doing this.
Zero.
Yeah. That should be a thing. Like you should make them like pay you for not doing it.
Yeah. For me, it's just like I want to. It's like I want to be supportive, but like I already know they're not going because it sucks. Yeah. I don't even want to do it, dude. And it's like. Probably like jiu-jitsu is my number one hobby. Hunting's a close second.
Yeah.
And when it's hunting season, like, cause hunting is like only like maybe a couple times a year where I'm like, that's the only time that I override jiu-jitsu is January.
Yeah.
And then if I have something in like in the fall.
Gotcha. Yeah.
The rest of the year, it's like, if I have time, I'll go hunt.
Yeah.
You know, go do a bear hunt in the spring or in the fall. But like January, I'm like, nope. If there's a tournament, tournament.
Yeah, no shit. Well, I mean, it's cool that that's become a part of your life. I'm very jealous actually, but it's just unrealistic for me to think that I could go out there every Saturday and you know.
Yeah. It's a big commitment. The way that I do it, like a lot of people are kind of like surprised that like I don't like the way I think a lot of people envision it, and the way a lot of people are exposed to hunting, especially now, like on YouTube, is like. People they'll go take a week off and be in like the backcountry of like, Colorado or something or Oregon or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're going to spend a week or like, 4 or 5 days out there. But like the reality is like we live in the middle of the desert. There is a ton of desert deer. If you know where you need to be, you can really just like, I don't drive much more than an hour for deer hunting.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So I basically just drive an hour. Because I know where, like, they're definitely, in the desert, they're definitely very pockety. You have to find them. It's a lot of work to figure out where deer are in the desert. And it's definitely its own skill set. Like
I would imagine they're close to some water, right? I mean.
Generally, but, like, you'd be surprised. Like, there's deer in, like, desert spots where there's, like, not really a lot of water. Wow. I think they get a lot of their water through vegetation. Cactus, shit like that. Yeah. I mean, they eat, like, all sorts of stuff, like grass, plants, like, all, the leaves off of, like, just, like, the small shrubs that are in, like, the desert. And I'm pretty sure that's where they get the majority of their water. Because there's definitely areas where I've been where I'm like, there is not water close by. Like, areas that I'm really, really familiar with. But then there's deer in areas where, definitely they stick by the water. Yeah.
So you drive an hour and then do you hike out? An hour, or do you just glass from where you're parked? Or
it depends. Definitely don't. I don't have any spots where I where I stick to where I park.
Okay. I'm gonna.
Oh, is that the other?
Yeah, they were just catching something. I'm hearing a buzz in my ear. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't. I prefer to be in spots where you have to like at least do some sort of hiking because that alone will take away a lot of the competition.
Yeah.
Right, because people don't want to hike.
Fuck no.
Right. Honestly, like areas that are like high travel, like with hikers, aren't really a big problem. It's areas with a lot of motorized vehicle travel.
Yeah.
That
makes sense.
Like especially dirt bikes and side by sides and that kind of stuff. Yeah. There's like an area that's like if you go up to like the Four Peaks. There's definitely deer out there.
Yeah.
But there are few and far between.
Yeah.
Right. Because of all of like the people dirt biking and quads and side by sides and all that kind of shit that's out there. It's like that's a tough spot.
It's interesting that they consider that shit outdoor activities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's fun.
I'm outdoorsy. I'm on my friggin' Can-Am.
Yeah.
Bro, stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to do all that stuff, and I really enjoy that. But in hunting season, I'm like, they should just like say it's illegal during January.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when we would go up to my buddy Phil's cabin in Heber, and when we'd go in the winter, and everybody's like, let's go shooting. I'm like, nope. That's hunting season. I'm not going to shoot. I'm not going to go out and fucking shoot during hunting season.
Honestly, I wouldn't worry about it too much because, like, dude, I've seen deer are simultaneously like the most like scary, like scared of everything kind of animal, and then also like they don't give a shit about anything animal.
Yeah, they're like they're like goldfish, right? They're like they got a short memory. Like They almost get shot. They're like, fuck. Okay, I'm good.
Because I've watched deer, like, because like another thing that happens sometimes, like in the fall, you'll have like people bird hunting.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
or even hunting rabbits or something like that.
Yeah.
And you'll see someone like shoot a shotgun and a deer won't even look.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, you'll be watching this deer, you'll hear this, and the deer's just like continues feeding or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like a lot of people put a little too much weight on that kind of stuff.
Yeah. When I was in Northeast Pennsylvania, this was like 2000, 2001, 2002. The first when you hear the first gunshot, because they cancel school on opening day of deer season.
Hell yeah.
They close the schools because no one's going to show up anyway.
Yeah.
But schools closed. When you hear that first shot, all of the big deer move into town.
Yep.
They all move it. Dude, there's some beautiful bucks in the city.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking crazy, dude.
There's parts in the South where you're allowed to urban hunt, but it's archery only.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe you told me about these guys that hunt like this neighborhood in Georgia or something like that. Yeah.
Where they have to kill these deer.
Yeah.
Because there's just they're a pest.
Yeah.
Like people they're just like, killing, like cars are getting, crushed because they're just people keep hitting deer.
But, and doesn't that cause disease when they're overpopulated in an area?
Yeah,
I don't know what
chronic wasting disease.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, when the populations get really high, the disease gets really high. We don't really have that issue in Arizona. It's definitely something that's on the radar for the Easy Game and Fish. Like they talk about it all the time. Like if you see something, report it.
Yeah.
But like we don't really have that problem because it's just like the populations in Arizona aren't anywhere near what they are in like the Northeast and the South.
Yeah.
So it's just like, thank goodness, right, that we don't have to deal with that. But those places you can also kill like 5 deer.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And most people out there are like tree stand hunting, which is like, you can call it hunting.
It's
I guess.
lame, dude. It's so I've done it. It's so lame. It's so
lame.
boring.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And where my brother hunts, they hunt on a lease in Texas.
Yeah.
And it's basically like 5-star. I mean, they're not roughing it by any means.
Yeah.
They built. I think I showed you the photos. If not, I'll show them to you. They took a big box bread truck.
Yeah.
That's all one thing. They took that out there. It didn't run.
Right.
And they left it as is, and they turned it into like a bathroom, like with a steam shower.
Yeah.
And, and a toilet and everything. That's their bathroom. So they're not roughing it out there.
And a lot of the leases out in like Texas, you're hunting over feeders.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. They're and it's just like you said, like they're skittish. The deer are skittish, but they come right back.
Yeah.
They come right back, and they're just like, they're easy to kill.
Because like it's like 99% of the time for them, they're going to hit these feeders and they're not even going to be bothered. There's nothing's going to shoot them. Nothing's going to fuck with them.
And why do those guys wear camo?
It's because it makes them feel like they're hunting. I wear camo when I javelina hunt.
Yeah.
You could go out in jeans and a white t-shirt.
You can, yeah. You can literally,
matter.
They don't fucking care.
They don't even know you're there. They're so dumb. Yeah. Well, they're blind and they're mostly deaf. Well, they're mostly blind, mostly deaf.
And they're mean though, right? They're mean.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I've never been charged by one.
Okay.
You honestly, like, all you have to do when they're in like after you kill a javelina, they all go fucking ape shit, right? Because they don't know what's going on. They just know somebody's dead.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they know that. I think they just know like, oh, that was a loud noise.
Yeah.
You just stand still, and they have no idea where you are,
and they just chill out.
They just run away. They just all go scatter. They just scatter, and you're just like, I'm just gonna stay still.
Are they a herd, or are they just
okay? Yeah, they herd. Yeah, they definitely herd up. But yeah, they're just dumb as fuck.
Yeah, that's funny, man.
Yeah, they're fun. I love hunting javelina. It's like the easiest like real hunting you can do.
Yeah. I want to shoot pigs from a helicopter. Wouldn't that be fun?
It sounds fun. It sounds wild.
Yeah. There's people that you can pay to do that, and they'll just tell you kill every one of them.
That's for people who've like watched like Vietnam movies, and they're like, I want to do that, but I don't want to get shot at.
Door gunner. Yeah. I don't know if you can go full auto, but maybe. I don't know.
I mean,
you can hunt them at night. You can do anything you want. Yeah.
Oh yeah. They're like they want you to kill every single pig you can find out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I want to go pig hunting, but like obviously with my bow.
I don't know if this is like any correlation to that, but they said that the rattlesnakes stop rattling.
I've heard that. I mean, I've heard that here. I've heard that in like places like the McDowells and Camelback Mountain and stuff like that, where they're like rattlesnakes don't really rattle because the ones that rattle get killed. So it's kind of like forced evolution, where like the ones that aren't rattling, the ones that have a lower propensity for rattling are gonna survive and
live longer,
and then they're gonna push on their genes.
Yeah, so, that's wild. Yeah, but they were saying that the feral hogs were just tearing them up.
Yeah, I mean they just beat the shit out of anything that like scares them.
Yeah,
you think like javelina are mean. A fucking boar.
Oh.
He will gore you
to death.
Big
too, huh?
Oh, they get big. Yeah.
I don't know what the record is, but I want to say it's like,
hundreds of pounds.
Over 800 pounds or something.
It's hundreds of pounds. Yeah, they're huge. Yeah, they're a big animal. Just think of like the biggest pig you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Now it's a wild animal.
Yeah.
Because they are the same thing technically. Yeah. They're just pigs that got out.
Yeah, that's true. Did you go with a group when you went on the hunt? Who were those guys you were with?
Oh, so like earlier in the season, I was in this area and I kind of was like I saw this buck that was like up on this hillside with his doe, and I saw him bed down, and he didn't even look like a big buck from the distance that I saw him at, but like it was big enough, right? I saw that he had a good size frame on him, so I like hiked up this mountain, big fucking mountain. It's like hiking to the top of Camelback in order to like kill a fucking deer and then fail.
Damn.
That's basically what I did. So I hiked to the top of this mountain, and like I was like within like almost 60 yards from him, but it was just like I didn't have a shot. Like he made me like as I was coming up around this like hillside. Like in hindsight, I knew exactly what I should have done, and then I would have had a shot on him. But I came up and he stood up, saw me, and we just like kind of stared at each other for half an hour, and then he eventually like kind of pushed off with his doe, and I watched him kind of go down the mountain. Like he headed like across the mountain and then headed down into the flats. So I was just kind of glassing him. I was like, maybe they'll chill out, because I didn't like spook him, but they did kind of like move off. Like
you just didn't look right.
Yeah, they're like something's up here, going on up here. So let's get out of here. So they went down into the flats.
Yeah,
and then they ended up running into I like was watching through my binoculars, and they saw these. They definitely like almost ran into these two other hunters, and then cut off another direction. And then I watched them, and they were heading towards where the side-by-side was. And right where the side-by-side was, there was a guy who was glassing towards where the other hunters were. Turns out that they were all in a group of three, right? He was just kind of like helping their friend, guiding his friend into like a couple of smaller deer. And this buck just basically like almost jumps in this guy's lap.
Damn.
Yeah, and so I'm watching this all take place. Like the deer, they're kind of moving across, and then the buck just kind of like takes off running towards like where this guy is glassing from, and it's just like running straight at him. I'm like, this buck's gonna jump right over this guy.
Oh shit.
So he runs right up into him, and then like right before the buck like gets to him, it like takes off the other direction, and they go off into like to never be seen from again, or seen or heard from.
And
again.
This guy was a hunter?
Yep. So I basically am like, that was fucking gnarly, and there's nothing going on up here. So I'm like, well, maybe I can get down there and get up on another like hilltop and see if I can figure out where they went. So I'm like, oh, well, I'm gonna go run over and see, like, go talk to this guy. So I run straight down like the mountain, not run, but like hike down the mountain and get to where this guy was. And I was like, yo, how close was that deer? He was like, I have a video. So this guy like shows me the video, and it's like this deer is like 10 feet from him. Whoa. Yeah, just like in his lap. And he's like, I was like, where's your bow? He's like, my bow's in my side-by-side.
No shit.
Yeah. And it was like definitely a shooter buck. It was like he was a big 4x4, which was like all the more like, oh God, I wish I would have killed him.
Yeah.
But then he was like, yeah, my buddy's over here. The two guys that were up on the hill, like those are my friends. My friend's about to kill his first deer, or is trying to kill his first deer. And there's a couple bucks right there. And I'm like, no lie. I'm like yelling at this guy because I was just like kind of like excited or whatever. And I'm like, oh shit, sorry, I'm being an asshole. And I look up, and like I see where the deer are, because like he showed me where they were, and it's like they're like 250 yards away. Like, but like there's hikers in this area, so they're just used to people being loud.
Yeah.
And they weren't even paying any bother to me.
Yeah. What about what's a realistic shot for a, like, I'm talking like a seasoned bow hunter? What's a realistic shot? Max range, I should say.
Yeah. It depends on conditions.
Like, let's say perfect conditions, no rain, no wind. What's like a?
I wouldn't even say weather conditions are the limiting factor. I would say the state of that deer. Like if the deer, you can tell when a deer is like knows something's kind of up. like a kind of like a switched on deer versus like a deer who's like being very casual. Like if he's just feeding, that's the perfect condition.
Okay.
Right. Cause like even wind, like at the range that you shoot deer with a bow, like even, so you wouldn't shoot a deer at 100 yards, but even if a deer was at 100 yards and you were to take a shot like that, the wind would have to be really high for it to really matter.
Okay.
Right. Cause the, kill zone on a deer is probably the size of like a 8x8 plate.
Okay.
Kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, that the wind drift on that isn't going to be super significant unless the wind is like pretty high. But for I always tell myself it's like 60 yards is the maximum shot I would take on a deer.
Okay.
Which is definitely not true because I would totally do so. But I shoot a lot.
Yeah.
And for me, it depends on like the confidence level, like how confident I am in like my current tune of my bow.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time over like the off season and even during the season, like making sure that my bow is tuned,
I think that's something that people overlook. Like you don't have an off season.
Yeah.
Like you have the seasons, you have the times of year where you're not allowed to hunt.
Yeah.
But you don't have an off switch, man. Like you're always shooting your bow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one thing, like people who say, hey, can you take me bow hunting?
Mm-hmm.
Bro, you're 3 years from being able to bow hunt for realistically, right? I mean, understanding like, understanding your equipment first off.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that takes a while.
Yeah. And something that a lot of people don't realize, like, especially rifle hunters don't realize this, because a rifle, you zero that bitch in and it's going to, if 10 years later, that rifle is going to put the bullet right 100%. In the same spot.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing that's going to change other than like, unless you go up like 10,000 feet,
right.
Like it's going to change like the drop of the bullet. But like in general, like zero is a zero on a rifle. Mm-hmm. Right.
You're going to catch so much shit for that one, by the way.
Well, I know from experience, anybody who talks shit is a fucking idiot. You don't know shit
about ballistics.
Yeah, I do. Because it's all very mechanical and the stuff in like what holds the zero in a rifle, is all mechanical.
Yeah.
Right. In a bow, you have basically plastic strings,
mm-hmm.
right? And that the plastic, no matter what material you're using, is gonna degrade over time.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like, okay, if you want to get real technical, yes, a rifle is gonna go out of zero in 1,000 years. when the aluminum inside of your scope finally degrades.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the plastic, like, by the end of the year, I don't care what what string material you're using, it's gonna stretch a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Which is gonna take your bow out of tune.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like there's your bow doesn't stay in tune, especially if you're shooting it.
Yeah.
Right. It very much depends on the quality of the string builds too. But like, if your bow's not in tune, your zero with your field points, like your practice tips, if your bow is out of tune, your broadheads are not going to hit the same spot.
Okay.
Period.
Yeah.
If your bow is out of tune, so a lot of people are like, oh, I shoot mechanicals because I don't want to worry about my tune. There is not there are some mechanicals that are better than others. Mechanicals are better than fixed blades because a fixed blade is basically just fletching on the front of your arrow.
Yeah. Do you use fixed blades?
I did for elk.
Okay.
I do for. I always have. So I have a six arrow quiver. I always have. For deer, I'll always have 2 fixed blades and 4 mechanicals.
How come?
The only reason that I would ever use a fixed blade is if I'm shooting through like grass.
Oh.
Because or grass or maybe some maybe if they're underneath a Palo Verde tree and they have like like kind of like the thin branches.
Yeah.
Because the problem with a fixed blade is if it catches one of those, like even a thin branch off of like a Palo Verde tree, it could pre-engage.
Mm.
And then when it hits the animal, it's basically hitting really broad and, it might not penetrate.
Yeah.
Right. But a fixed blade, when it hits a branch like that, it's just going to slice through.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
the first example you gave was mechanical. I think you said fixed blade. So the first example was if it hits anything, it's going to engage too early on a mechanical.
Yeah.
So you use a fixed blade to avoid that.
Yeah. And those who don't know, so mechanical is like the whole idea of a mechanical broadhead is that it, in its like unengaged state, it's basically really compact so that it doesn't have a lot of deviation from the wind. Like that's the problem with a fixed blade is that, like I said, it's like having fletching in the front of your arrow.
Yeah.
A mechanical broadhead is almost similar to a field point in design, as far as like there's not a lot of like stuff that causes resistance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it has minimal resistance in the front of your arrow, which means that it technically should be flying very similar to your fixed your field points.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of like the what's it called? Like the marketing jargon is that like flies like a field point.
Okay.
Right. That's what a lot of those companies will say. I have seen a lot of tests from people that is bullshit. If you're,
no shit.
If you're, and it definitely depends on how out of tune your bow is. But if your bow is not in tune, your fixed blades your mechanicals are not flying like field points. They will deviate. They deviate less than a fixed blade.
Can you describe what a tuned bow shoots like rather than a not tuned?
So basically, what a tuned bow means is that like when that arrow leaves your bow, the nock is perfectly behind the tip of the arrow.
The nock being the piece that goes into your string.
Yeah, so it's flying perfectly straight.
Gotcha.
Because if like think about like if you shoot off like a riser, like a traditional bow, like a stick bow, like when that arrow comes off, like it kind of like flings off the bow, and if you watch in slow motion, you'll see like as the arrow leaves the bow, like the tail end will kick out to the side.
It's almost like a fishtail.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea of the fletching is the fletching kind of pulls that back, right? And the fletching is designed to compensate for a lot of that like untune, and the tune can be like thrown off too by like if you like torque your bow, if you're like squeezing the grip and you like kind of turn the bow a little bit. Like there's a lot of like technique that goes into shooting a bow to make sure that it's as consistent as possible every single time. Yeah. Right. So that basically, if your bow is out of tune, it means that your arrow is coming out of the bow a little cockeyed.
Gotcha.
And a lot of the stuff in like in compound bows like really prevent like any of sort of that kickoff that like you get from like shooting off of your riser like you would with a traditional bow, which is really awesome, but you still have to tune it, right? You have to tune it so that the nock of your arrow is coming right behind that is directly behind it, and usually you start by like shooting through paper. Okay. Right. Like if you shoot especially it's really obvious when you have like an arrow that doesn't have any fletching. You shoot that through paper. You just have this tiny little circle, this tiny little dot of where the arrow goes through that paper. But if it's off tune, you'll have a line, right? Because it's coming through that paper like kind of sideways.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Right. So if you have a fixed blade, let's say like you have a tail right, so the point of your arrow is pointing to the right, and you have a fixed blade, right? Or I said tail right. If you have a tail right, your arrow's pointing to the left, right? So the fixed blade is going to cause that arrow to continue that direction. So if the tip is pointing left, your arrow is going to keep going left because there's nothing to pull it back.
And is it like when you jerk a trigger on a rifle, where if it's so much off at 10 feet, it's going to be like exponentially more at 25. Same shit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like say like if it deviates like, an inch at 30 yards, it's going to be, 2 inches or 3 inches or whatever. It's going to be even farther. Like the farther out you go, the more that deviation is going to be. Gotcha. Because it's always fighting that plane. And
the reason I asked that is I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be like, you're 10 feet at 60 yards, right? I mean, it's just enough to give you a bad shot on an animal.
You can be completely off target. Yeah. Especially with a fixed blade, you can be completely off target. Wow. Like it's a big difference depending on how bad your tune is. Wow. Or even if you like, a lot of people, especially when they're nervous, will like kind of like maybe grip their bow a little tighter, and they'll induce a little torque on their riser, right? Which is gonna have like, even if your bow is tuned right, it's gonna take it out of tune while you're initiating your shot.
So if you tune your bow using field points, which is like the little screw-on ones that don't cut you, they kind of look like the tip of a bullet, right? Yeah. You use those to tune it. Can you be confident that your fixed blade or your mechanicals will also be in tune?
So there's
not a bad question, huh?
It's not a bad question, and I've experimented with this a lot, and I've heard a lot of silly shit on the internet.
Easy, they're experts.
No, they're
Stop it, they're experts.
Even the experts, I'm like, I don't think you understand the physics behind this. But like, So, all right. So here's what I do.
Now, hang on. Let's be fair. A lot of the people that are doing this are engineers, and they have a lot of good information. And because I'm only saying this because everybody's thinking Duck Dynasty. You know what I mean? They're thinking long. Idiots. Well, I'm just saying, but hunters are not bearded people that wear camouflage like on a Tuesday.
I would say the average hunter is in the Bubba quote range.
You think so? That many?
Yes, I think the average hunter is very uneducated.
Oh shit!
When it comes to this kind of stuff,
yeah. Okay.
There's definitely a niche. Like from all of the people I've run into, I've seen setups, I've seen people like at the range and talk to people. I'm like, the average hunter really doesn't know a lot of this stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
But like, I nerd out on this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I know you do. And that's why I'm asking the questions because I did for a minute and then I got away from it. My bow's 3 pounds heavier with all the dirt that's on it, all the dust that's on it. But
it looks good on the wall though.
I love shooting it, man. I really enjoyed it. It's probably one of the more frustrating things that I really enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, so what I do is I bear shaft tune first, which means that, I paper bear shaft tune because there's technically 2 different kinds of bear shaft tuning, and a lot of people mean one thing when they say that, and some people mean another thing when they say it. When I say I bear shaft tune, it means I'm paper tuning with a bear shaft.
And that means that it has a knock and it has a field point, but no fletching.
No fletching.
Gotcha.
And I'll shoot through paper at in my kitchen, at 6 feet from a piece of paper. Right. I want what that arrow is doing right outside of my bow. So I'll shoot it through a piece of paper, and then I'll adjust my either my cam lean, which is using like shims on the axle that holds the cams, or I'll move my rest depending on where I'm at in the tune. Like you start with if you have say you have like an inch tear, like I'll start with moving my cams right with the shims, and that's if it's an inch left, an inch right, inch up. Like if it's up or down, that's going to require moving the rest up or down, or moving your D loop.
So you don't mess with the rest unless it's up and down.
At least at first.
Okay.
Yeah. At first, the only time the first thing, most of the time, what I've found that I get is for the most part is left to rights.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll deal with that with the cam, and then it's like really, really fine tuning. Like the up and down stuff is usually pretty dead on. Like a lot of people will basically put the burger button hole, or the burger hole is like the hole that your sight, your rest bolts into, like on the side of your bow. It's just like right in the middle, like right above where your rest is. It's like maybe, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch off the rest. There's that bolt hole. And you usually, when you're setting up your D loop, you usually want to have your arrow with the rest like perfectly engaged, like in like an upright position. That arrow sits either directly through it. I find that like I always have my D loop a little high. Mm-hmm. So I like to have my a little high on that burger button, but generally it's like right through that burger button, and then it's just going to be a couple of clicks on your rest if at all.
Gotcha.
And that's usually a good spot for your up and downs. Now the left and rights just very much depend, right? How much you have to move your cam over.
So you work like from the outside in, like shims, and then
yeah. I mean, so there's like a thin shim, and then there's a thicker shim, and it just kind of like sometimes you'll just flip it.
Okay.
Or sometimes you'll have to get like a thinner shim and a fatter shim. And you just kind of have to move the cam in direction depending on where the what the tear looks like. So I get it on paper where it's shooting a tiny like just a perfect hole, right? And then I'll step back like in my family room, so I'm shooting like 10 yards, right? And then shoot it through that paper, and it's assuming I'm doing everything right.
That's what happened to Buddy. Motherfucker.
Hey, that's still soft. But like, yeah, I mean, generally, like, I've noticed that like the thing about shooting, like when you're shooting a bear shaft, the farther back you shoot, it's more. I find that it's more about your technique. Like if you can't consistently hold your bow, you're gonna see that. But like at like that 6 foot, 10 foot like range, you're gonna know more about your bow than about you.
Gotcha.
So basically, I just want a bullet hole, a tiny little hole, right, with a bear shaft. And for me, I have never seen any deviation from my broadheads if I have my bow shooting bullet holes with bear shafts.
Yeah.
Right? But there's a bear shaft tuning, which is basically you'll go out 20, 30, 40 yards. Usually start lighter because I told you, like, if your bow's really out of tune, you're going to be completely off target with a broadhead, right? So you'll want to do this with like the shittiest broadhead. When I say shittiest broadhead, I mean like the biggest kind of like a broadhead that's definitely going to make your arrow plain if your bow's out of tune, right? Yeah. Just because it just highlights the tune, right? Or the lack thereof, right? Yeah. So you'll shoot a broadhead out to your a foam target at like 20 yards, right? And then you'll shoot right after it, same target, same point of impact target point that you're looking at. You'll shoot you'll shoot a field point, right? So you'll target an arrow that just has like a regular practice tip. Yeah. And then you'll see, okay, my broadhead hit 5 inches to the left of where my field point hit, right? And that's indication. Like, so if your broadhead is hitting to the left, it means you have a tail right tear. Okay. Because it's planing. Yep. Because that means the tip's pointing to the left. Yep. Right. So then you'll tune your bow based off of that. So you'll treat it just like you were shooting through paper, like with a tail right tear. Yeah. Right. So you want to bring that in so that back end comes in. So that's the real world way of determining whether or not your broadheads are hitting in the right spot. Yeah. But I have never had an issue like if I shoot through paper with a bare shaft, my broadheads are always hitting where my field points are. Okay. Right. And there's going to be like some variation, like, because like there's like they'll usually hit a little low, right? Because there's like, even though they're like your bow's tuned properly, there's still more resistance on the front of your bow, so it slows your bow. The arrow is gonna slow down a little bit more, especially the farther out you go. Yeah. So your arrow is gonna drop a little bit quicker. Gotcha. Right, because there's more resistance. That makes sense. Yeah. Right. So the field points that I use now are these ones that are made by Iron Will, which are designed to have so they don't have any like planing, like there's not any wings on it or anything like a fixed blade would have, but they are they're wider, so they cause a little more wind resistance. Mm-hmm. So that they kind of mimic the amount of drop that you would have with the added wind resistance of a fixed blade. Oh, that's neat. Yeah. So they they do a bunch of wind tunneling kind of stuff. So they have a very similar amount of wind resistance. Yeah. So all things equal, your fixed blades fly like your field points. What's the amount of drop, say at 40 yards compared to a regular field point? Not a lot. Okay. Like an inch. Okay. Yeah. But it's still. Yeah, still an inch. Yeah, yeah, but I mean, like on an animal, like an inch is like that's within the realm of like acceptability, right? You're like that's fine. Yeah, right. Because if you're shooting at the lungs, like I said, it's like an 8x8 plate. You're shooting for the center of that plate. You're still hitting. You still have 3 inches of room. Right. Right. And the heart sits at the bottom of that plate. Yeah. So you're on your last day of the season of your hunting season, and the day starts out. You driving your hour, hiking out, and then you spot this. I mean, was it 6 point? Oh, he's a 4x4. 4x4 with one broken tine. Yeah. No shit. Yeah, and he has like tiny little eye guards, but he was so I was up on this hillside. This like knob, like this, like I almost have 360. Okay. Right. On one side of it basically points into a neighborhood, so it's like not really beneficial. I mean, you can find deer out there, but you can't really. You have to be a quarter mile away from houses or occupied structures. So it's not really even worth it if I found a deer over there. Yeah. So I was up there. I was kind of like looking towards the mountains in the back, which is like towards the wilderness area, not wilderness, but like, wilder area. Yeah. Right. And I saw, these couple of hunters who were like coming up the backside of this hillside, and, I'm like sitting there like behind my binoculars, like take my hat off, and I'm like waving at them, like trying to get their attention. And they finally, see me. So they stop and they kind of like go down the ridge that's like kind of like below where I was, and they decide to glass there, so they didn't come all the way up. So I was like, all right, cool. And I just continued to glass and, stayed in that spot, went to the other side of the knob, glassed a little bit, came back over, looked over there. And then it's like right as the golden hour hit, we're like, like I said, like the sides of the hills, like you can see before, like just think about like any sunrise you've ever seen. Like you can see before the sun actually comes up, right? So you're like looking around still, but then once that sun hits the side of the mountain, I found this buck who was just like, he was sitting out in the open. And you also have binoculars that are way better than the shit you'll get off the shelf at like a Dick's Sporting Goods. I mean, I guess they might have those, maybe. Dick's, yes. Dick's is trash. Yeah. There's not going to be anything at Dick's, but I was going to say like most places, like, so I use my general use binoculars that I use for glassing are the 15 by 56 Swarovski, the SLC 15 by 56, which are like as far in the 15 by 56 range. I don't think there's anything better. Mm-hmm. So that's what I generally use. I like that magnification and objective lens size because you can basically everything that you can see really well is within like stalking range of that day. Yeah. Right. Cause like, I don't really like using like spotters where you can go like they have like 20 to 60, magnification with like a 80 millimeter objective lens, which you can see out miles. Right. Yeah. And what they're really good for is identifying, like, say you see a buck like that. I told you that buck that I saw on the hill. I was like, I had no idea that he was as big as he was. I just knew he was big enough. Yeah. Right. If like what a lot of people do, especially guides, they'll see that there's a buck on there and then they'll pull out the spotter and they'll put the spotter on him and then
just to verify.
Yeah, and then you'll with a spotter with a 60 power with an 80 millimeter objective lens, you're like, oh, that deer looks like he's right in front of you, right? So you can like really tell, like you can score that deer more or less with that kind of glass. That makes sense. I'm not that particular as far as like what I'm looking for, so I don't even bother. Plus, it's a lot of extra weight you have to bring. Yeah. So.
Because it requires like its own stand and shit like that. Right?
Well, I mean, I glass with a tripod, anyways. I think if you're not glassing with a tripod, you're not really glassing. Because holding like 10s, 10 by 40, 10 by 42s. Yeah, like you can see a little bit. Like with a couple 100 yards, you'd probably be okay. But like that's pretty much it. Yeah. Like the deer that I found like on that mountainside, like I would never have seen that deer if I was trying to glass offhand.
Gotcha.
Right. Even if I was like putting it up on my knees, like trying to like, brace as much as I could. Tripod is the way to go. Yeah. So find a nice, light, stable tripod, and that'll greatly increase the animals that you see. Gotcha. Right. Even if you're only using 10 bys. Yeah. But yeah, so I found him. And I kind of was like, I was kind of checking in to see what the hunters were doing. The other hunters were doing. Like I would like look over and just be like, all right, what are they looking at? Kind of cheating, trying to see like if they see something over there and be like, do I see something over there? Yeah. But like I found this buck and then I was like looking down and I was like, I wonder what those guys are looking at right now. So I would go look over them and they're kind of like looking the same direction. They didn't look like they were like necessarily like had him. So I already had made the decision that I was going to go in on this deer. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go check in on these guys just to kind of see what their thoughts are. Like, I mean, I'm already kind of like, I was the first one out. Like I'm always the first one out there. I like to get out there like a half hour before the sun, before you can even think of glassing. Yeah. Right. Cause I just like to be out there. Cause when you're hiking through the desert, especially, you're like, there's no way to do it quietly. Yeah. Especially at night. So I was like, I like to get out there and like let everything settle, that kind of stuff. So I went and checked in with these guys and it turns out it was the same guys that were like, where that deer almost jumped in that guy's lap.
Oh, no shit.
It was the same dude. And it turns out, I told you about my friend Ronnie that I met on my elk hunt or whatever, the guy I killed the elk with. Yep. They're good friends.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. So like all the guys I know, Bravo, the other guy that who was in elk camp with me, like, and now he trains at Paul's. Yeah. Cool. He knows Bravo. He was there when Bravo killed his elk like a handful of years ago. Like, it's like, oh, it was like small world. Yeah. So it was really cool. So I was like, they were, I mean, a lot of hunters will be like, yeah, I'm seeing some deer, but they're not going to like be like, yeah, I saw this, 200-inch buck. Yeah. They're not really, they're like, you give some information to fellow hunters, but you're not giving away your secrets. Right.
Yeah, of course.
So they were basically like, turns out they were like, they saw a buck the day before that they were like really looking for, like a big buck. So they weren't really interested in the buck that I was that I had glassed up. They noticed him, but they were like, yeah. He's like, if you want him, he's yours. And I was like, fuck yeah. So they kind of like watch him, and the buck just kind of like, and this is at this point it's like 8:30, going on to 9 o'clock, and he's just kind of like sitting there. We're just kind of watching this buck. They're looking. One of the guys is like watching the buck with me. The other one is kind of like looking for the other buck that they had like spotted earlier that day. So they're kind of like and trying to like ID him or whatever, because from a distance it's tough. So they do the same thing I do, except they actually have spotters. So they had spotting scopes with them because they're out there with their side by side. Yeah. So they weren't worried about the weight. So they're out there like, looking for that buck, but also kind of like looking at the buck that I was looking at. And we're just kind of chit chatting. That's like how I found out that like, it turns out we know the same people. He trained, turns out the guy that helped me the most was, he trains at Gracie Baja.
Okay.
Yeah. He was he trained at the one in Chandler. He knows Norat.
Yeah.
Like he's like, yeah, he's a good dude. He's one of my buddies.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, as far as I know, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
From
nice guy.
from what I heard. And he was kind of like, talking to me about jiu-jitsu and, that kind of stuff. And we're just kind of like watching this buck. And the buck kind of like eventually stands up and he kind of like meanders into like this Palo Verde tree because he was like bedded in the wide open.
Wow.
Not even behind like a small shrub or anything. He was just right underneath this like saguaro cactus. So he like kind of feeds a little bit into this like Palo Verde tree or, group of Palo Verde trees. And it's the desert. There's not like a lot of places for him to go on a hillside.
Yeah.
Like if you're watching him on a hillside, you can tell, but they do disappear like behind trees. So like he kind of goes into this like, patch of Palo Verde tree. You can see him kind of feeding and you kind of see him moving a little bit. Like you kind of like, cause you can see the movement through it, but you can't really make out like what he's doing. And then he finally kind of disappears like behind these trees and never kind of shows up again. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he bedded down.
Yeah.
Right. Cause there's not a lot for him to do behind a Palo Verde tree. Right.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So we're watching him and just talking and talking. And I was like, I'm pretty sure he's bedded down. I'm finally like making the decision that I'm going to put a stock in on him. And he's like, hell yeah, let me find that, that, but cause he's at this point, he's kind of like the other hunters kind of like put off, like looking at other things right now. He's like, well, let me get my, get eyes up back on the Palo Verde tree and I'll make sure that he stays there as you're coming in and I'll text you if he like kind of bails out.
Nice.
So I'm like, all right, hell yeah. So we, exchange numbers or whatever. And, I start hiking around. I drop behind the ridge that I'm at to make a big loop around because you don't even like, as you're moving through like the desert, even if he's like, he doesn't know, like he can still see you, right? If you're looking through a bush, like you can still see, even if someone can't see you, right?
Yep.
So you don't want to be like out in the open, like going beeline towards a deer, right? Because he's going to see you and eventually like, maybe not like run away, but he's going to push off.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, he's not going to take the chance. Like a deer, it's not
especially
like
one that age that's been around for a little bit.
Yeah, they don't have like a lot of like defense mechanisms other than running.
Yeah.
Right? So they're not going to take the chance. So what I basically just took this big loop around him because the wind was pointing basically like from where we were glassing towards the deer. So basically I wanted to get behind him. Right. So I made my way around. There's a couple of cuts, like little tiny canyons. And there's like, it turns like I've only like looked at this area through glass, right? So it's like it's really cool when you finally get like put a stock in on deer because you see like where all the game trails are.
Yeah.
And like you'll see that like there's like I saw like a couple bushes that were dug up, so there's definitely javelina in the area because they like eat the roots of like a lot of trees.
Yep.
It's really cool like just on your way out there the stuff you see. So I get behind him. I'm heading up the hill that he was on. Like it's basically like a finger of like this like, between two kind of like canyons, for lack of a better term, like small canyons. Not like nothing big or anything like that. But like there's a couple doe that were bedded behind him, and I spooked those doe because I didn't know they were there. But they're like a couple 100 yards away from him.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, fuck. So I text the guy and I was like, I'm like, as I'm progressing, I'm like, all right, I've passed the fence line coming up on the, like, I'm just telling him where I'm at or whatever. And I'm like, shit, I just spooked two doe. And they kind of like ran what I thought was kind of towards where the buck was. And he's like, you're good. And I was like, all right, cool. Cause like they just basically went up the hill and then went down and away from him.
Oh, good. Okay.
So they went the opposite direction. So I get to the top. He's like, text me when you get to the road. Cause there's like a little dirt road that like kind of like a side by side, like a little 2-track road that kind of like goes up around him. And he was just like right at the, like just to the east of the road and the road kind of like scoops up behind him. So I cross this, I get to the road, I text him. I'm like, all right, I'm at the road. Is he still, and did he move at all? He's like, still there as far as he could tell. Right. Like, wow. But you can't see him.
Yeah.
So this is all like almost conjecture, right? We're just like, we're pretty sure he's there.
Yep.
So like, it's very possible, like between like me getting set up and everything that like, maybe he just took off.
Yeah.
But like, it's the desert. There's not a lot.
There's always that possibility, but you gotta make sure.
Exactly. So we start going up the hill. And he texts me. He's like, you're at the same level, like on the same like level up the hill or whatever. And he's like, and you're about 100 yards away. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm making my way over to him. And I have it like, There's I use Onyx, and there's a cool feature on Onyx where you can like point your phone in the direction of whatever you're looking at, and then if you know the yardage. So I have my rangefinder, and I yarded him. He was like, I think it was like 840 something yards or whatever. So you put the little like you set the thing to 840 yards or whatever, and it'll show you on the map what's 840 yards away from you.
No fucking way.
So you can put a drop pin on the map of like where that is.
So you could put it on the Palo Verde tree,
more or less. Yeah,
pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close. So I had a very general idea, like a pretty good general idea, I should say, of where he was. Right. So I'm like starting to head to that point, checking my phone. I'm like, all right, I'm pretty close, making sure the wind's right. Wind stayed perfect the entire time, which was awesome. It didn't shift at all, which is kind of nice because we waited till, by the time I probably made a move, it was probably like 9:30. So I get up on that hill, and my buddy's like, he texts me, he's like, you should be like right on top of him. So I pull out my binoculars, and I'm like, I'm looking around. I'm like, where the fuck is he? I'm like, I think so I'm starting, like, I'm looking like underneath Palo Verde trees, right? Because I'm like, I can't really, everything looks completely different, right? When you're like 840 yards away versus like 40 yards away. Yep. So I'm looking, and I like look behind because there was a big saguaro cactus and then a Palo Verde tree. So I'm looking for those, like anytime where there's a Palo Verde tree with a saguaro cactus. So I find one, and then I look through it, see some grass, and then right through the grass, I see like the tops of his tines. Oh shit! And he's just like, and then you can tell because when they're bedded down, they're not sleeping. Usually, they're just kind of like chilling, right?
Yeah, they're semi-alert.
Yeah. So I see his head kind of move a little bit, and it just like, it's like deliberate movement. It's not like wind movement like you would see with grass, right? Yeah. So I'm like, oh fuck yeah, I found him. So I text him. I'm just like, I'm on him. He's like, hell yeah. So we're sitting there, and I'm like, so I kind of slowly start like creeping in closer to him, closer. So I'm like about 35 yards away from the Palo Verde tree, which I estimate puts him at like 30. So I have my bow dialed into 30, and I'm like, there's not really any closer I could get, because from what you can tell by like what his tines look like which direction his head's facing. Yeah. Because you know how they kind of wrap forward. Yep. So I knew he was facing up the hill, kind of where I was. So I'm like, I don't want to get any closer, because if he sees me creep up over like into his view, he's going to see me. Yeah. And he's going to take off. And I'm at 30 yards away from the bush. So I'm like, all I really need is for him to stand up. Yep. Right. So I'm sitting there. I text him. I'm like, all right, I'm on him. I'm about 35 yards away from him, 30 to 35 yards away from him. I'm like, he's bedded down. I just need him to stand up. He's like, all right, hold tight. He's like, so he's like, we're going to make some noise and see if we can get him to like, because like a lot of times if they hear something, they'll stand up just to see what the fuck, and look, and then they'll chill. Like they're not like spooked, but they want to make sure, they want to check. Of course. So they like, they like, hey deer, from like this. And then again, this is like 840 yards away. Wow. Right. And I can hear him. Right. And the deer, I can see his antlers. I'm watching the deer. He just kind of like turns his head just a little bit, but he's like facing straight up the hill, which is directly away from where the other guys were. And I just see him like turn his head like a couple degrees, and then he just goes right back. Doesn't give a fuck. They have a little predator call in their side by side, and they set it off. They use like there's a fawn in distress, which apparently like sometimes bucks react to it. Okay. Which I've never thought to use that, but so they put
what does it sound like? Like a squeal?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to describe. Yeah. You just have to like look it up. It's like it's very particular. It doesn't sound like a rabbit for sure. Gotcha. But so they put a fawn in distress call, and same thing. He just kind of like turns his head a little bit. Nothing. Selfish bastard. Motherfucker. Yeah. I'm telling you, absentee dad. He will not be missed. He's like, I don't give a fuck. He will not be missed. Sorry, kid. So I'm like sitting there, and I'm like, I'm sitting here like, I'm straight downwind. The wind's blowing in my face. Like, I'm staring at this deer, 30 yards. I'm like, I just need him to stand up. And I'm like, he's not moving. I texted him. I was like, he barely reacted. Eventually, like those guys had like knew another. They lived in that neighborhood, so they knew there was another guy that was hunting that area that also lived in that neighborhood. So they knew who it was. They're not like friends per se, but they knew who they were. Yeah. They had like kind of met up with them a little bit, and was just like, hey, what you guys seeing anything? And then they told the other guys like, yeah, my buddy's like 30 yards from a deer right now, waiting for him to stand up. And he's like, hey, do you want us to like try to drive by with the side by sides and see if because the road's right there. Yeah. Right. And see if he stands up. So they drive pretty much up the hill towards him, not like I mean, he's like maybe 200 yards, maybe 100 yards.
Not terrible.
Yeah, 100 to 200 yards away from where the deer was.
Yeah.
And the deer doesn't fucking care. Doesn't care. But like I was telling you, it's like a lot of people like think that like, oh, you can't hunt area where there's people riding side by sides and dirt bikes because you spook all the deer. It's like they know that those don't kill them.
Yeah.
Right. So as long as they're like bedded down away from the roads, I think they know that like the roads are where those things go.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they don't really care that much. And they're used to that noise.
Yeah.
So he didn't like really give a shit. And I'm just gonna wait it out. He's like, it's your call. And he's like, yeah. I'm just gonna be patient here. I mean, he's got to stand up eventually, like,
right.
You know, because they don't stay bedded all day long. They'll get up and stretch. They'll maybe feed a little bit. So I'm like sitting there and like maybe I don't know, probably 45 minutes of like trying to get him to stand, and then like another 15 minutes after that, he finally stands up. Yeah, so I'm like texting him, like, he's not doing anything. I'm just going to be patient. So we're being patient. And he finally stands up. And it turns out, I thought he was broadside, like kind of just with his head like pointed uphill, but he was actually sitting facing uphill. So like basically like pointed directly at me.
Yeah.
So he stands up. And as like if you've ever seen a deer stand up, they kind of like tilt their head forward as they kind of like, crane themselves up. So as he was starting to crane and he like tilted his head forward, I knew he was standing. So I drew my bow back right as he was standing. And it turns out he was facing directly at me. Right. Which isn't like the ideal shot is a broadside shot. Right. So I can point right at his heart or his lungs. Right. And just shoot him sideways. Right. But he's pointing directly at me, which is like, it's not a bad shot, but there's not a lot of room for error.
Okay.
Right. But I'm 30 yards away. So that's a pretty easy shot for me, right? So I'm sitting there. I give him a couple of seconds. He like kind of is looking uphill, but he's not looking at me. That's just the direction he's facing. And I'm looking at him, and he's pointing directly at me. I'm like, maybe he's going to turn. Maybe he's not. I'll see what he does. I can kind of hold this for a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to sit at full draw for like a minute.
Right.
But all I know is if I let down, he's gone.
Yep.
Right? Because he's going to see me let down, and he's going to take off.
Yeah. So
I'm sitting there. He's just standing. 10, 15 seconds go by. I'm like, I'm just going to frontal him. Right. So, and he's pointing up the hill. So I basically settle my pin like just below his chin. Right. Cause it's going to go downhill into his vitals.
Yeah.
And I shoot him, and he takes off to my left into the wash, about 100 yards away. And my buddies, they're at this point, they're at the side-by-side, like, 100, 200 yards away from the thing. And he was filming me, like, when they were, like, calling him, because they were hoping he would stand up and I would shoot him.
Shot, yeah.
Right, and he would have it on camera.
Yeah.
And he was like, the only time that I wasn't filming you is when you shot him. And I was like, well,
did he catch you on camera, like, in full draw?
No.
Oh shit.
No,
okay.
no.
Yeah.
So like he didn't even know like that he stood up, because I wasn't gonna like, all right, he stood up.
Yeah.
Draw. Like I couldn't. My hands were full at that time, right?
Yeah.
So I shoot him, and they're watching, like they see me. They're watching me the whole time, right? So they see the buck take off, and they're watching him. And he's like, and I was like, and I text him right after. I was like, I fucking just shot him, and he's like, I think he's down. He's like he's in the wash about 100 yards down from you. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I start creeping the hillside, like basically staying at the same elevation I am, just like kind of like up above him. And I'm trying to get over to see where he's at. And he's telling me, he's like, I think he's dead. Like, but he's like, I think he's moving a little bit. So I'm like, okay. So I'm following. And he's like, I'm not seeing him move or anything, but I think he's in the wash. He's like, I'm pretty sure he's down. I'm like, the whole time, like right after I shot him, I was like, wasn't like 100% confident. I was like, I've never taken a frontal shot on an animal.
Yeah.
Theoretically, it's very lethal.
Yeah.
Like one of them, it's like if you can get the shot right, it's like one of the most lethal shots. So I'm
any danger of hitting something you shouldn't hit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a sternum, but there's like a hole right underneath like its chin, like right at the top of its chest.
Yeah.
Right. Just think like where your collarbone is.
Right there.
Yep. They have like a big gap there. And as long as you make that gap, you're fine. Like if you thread the needle there, he's fucking dead.
Yeah.
I threaded the needle.
Wow.
But like, so I'm watching, so I'm getting around, and they're like, he's like, you should be like 30 yards away in the bottom of the wash. So I keep creeping around, and I'm like on the phone with him at this point.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not seeing him. And I'm like, he's got to be like dead or really hurt. Because if I'm talking on the phone, like so there's no way if he's alive he doesn't hear me.
Yeah.
Right. And he would have taken off if it was a bad shot. So I come around and I find him and he's like piled up at the very bottom of this wash in this big like kind of like a flat dirt spot. Like it's perfect. Like as far as like processing goes afterwards.
Yeah. Was he dead?
Yeah. I mean he was still like doing his like last breaths.
Yeah.
Right. Which anybody who's like killed a deer is like kind of seen it where like it's like really slow, deep.
Yeah.
But it's like, and he was basically done. So I just had to give him a couple minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was done. And then one of the guys that were in this second side by side, like were like he was kind of like right there at the time because he like came over because he was trying to like see the deer better to get a better eyes on him. He was like he came up and he was like, dude, fuck yeah, congrats,
Yeah.
Came up and I showed him the deer and so we started like we were kind of like waiting because we were thinking they were all going to come over. So we like followed like the blood trail of like, and it was just like a ribbon of red.
Wow.
From like where he fell and where he came. Oh yeah.
Where was the arrow?
It was still in him.
Oh no shit. Okay.
Yeah. It was because it just went straight through his chest.
Yeah.
Like, fletching were sticking out just a little bit out, but like I was shooting a mechanical, it fucking put a big hole like through his vital section. So
wow.
But yeah, blood everywhere.
Wow.
All the way to where he's bedded. Yeah. So it was awesome. And then we were like we kind of like did a couple pictures and did that kind of thing. And then quickly we're like I didn't have my pack with me. I left my pack like where I was glassing. So I was like, hey, mind if I jump in your side by side and so I can go grab my pack? It's just over where they were glassing or whatever. So I was like, yeah, cool, let's go get it. So we go over there, and when we get over to where my pack was, they found a couple of herd of javelina. So they were like getting ready to kill a couple of javelina. But they went in a stock and was like, oh, what a cool day would it be if like I killed a deer, each one of these guys kill a couple of javelina.
That'd be fucking cool.
It'd be dope.
Yeah.
They ended up spooking the javelina out.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah, so they didn't get the javelina, and we went up, and everyone went over to my deer, and it was like
So including the brow tines, would it be a 10-point deer? Including the brow tines?
No, they don't. You don't count that. Like I guess some people might. I don't know.
I would. Fuck it.
I consider like a typical mule deer is going to be a 4x4.
Yeah.
They have because they fork off, right?
Yep.
And then each
big forks, right? They do big wide
sometimes,
ones, right?
Yeah, and sometimes they'll have like kickers and like big brow tines and stuff like that, where you can really count them as like other points. But generally, like a good mature mule deer is going to be like a 4x4.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're
that's cool.
And they're thicker. Some have really thick ones and big long blades and stuff.
What would you estimate how old he was?
I have no idea. I'm really bad at like
me too.
That aging thing. I've never like looked into it because I've never really cared.
Yeah.
I know
it might be cool. It might be cool to learn that.
Yeah, I know a lot of people can tell like they can tell like when you're glassing them, you can tell by like I guess the wrinkles in their ear. You can tell by like their teeth when you finally like kill them. You can like based off of like the wear of their teeth.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I don't know. It's never been anything that I've been all that interested in learning.
So was it just like a quarter in the head and you left all the rest of the shit out there?
Yep. Yeah, you leave the gut pile and like the ribs and like the spine and stuff out there.
Yeah.
Coyotes take care of that.
Yeah.
They got to eat too.
They got to eat too, man.
Yeah, and the birds. The birds love gut piles.
Yeah.
So, you just quarter, shoulders and thighs, and then the back straps, and then the tenderloins, which are like kind of like right underneath the spine.
Yeah.
And then some of the neck meat. The rib meat's like basically useless. It's like so thin, it's not worth having.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for very little meat.
Yep. And then the skull. So
how many pounds of the what do you call it? The what we're talking about doing in bacon. I can't think of the word. Not the tenderloin, but the backstrap. Gosh, the backstrap. How many pounds of backstrap do you think you got off of him? You said he wasn't that big though, right?
Yeah, he was actually really small bodied. An interesting thing. So I was like, as we were actually kind of like when we were looking at him and watching him kind of like move, like he really only went like 10 yards from where he was bedded down overnight. So
no shit.
Because he was bedded like in the morning, right? Which is pretty common. You'll see him bedded in the morning a lot of times. And then he moved like 10 yards and then bedded down again. So we were like, I wonder if he's sick or hurt. Right. But he wasn't like limping or anything. He was moving kind of slow, but like it was also like more or less a full moon that night.
Or
right?
maybe that's where all the broads were. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
he knows where it's at.
But I mean, that does happen, especially like full moon nights. It's like they're up all night chasing does.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes they're just tired.
Yeah.
During the daytime. So it's like we're like maybe he's just tired.
Yeah.
But like as I was like quartering him out, I found the tip of another broadhead like in his back flank.
No shit.
Yeah.
Is that the first time you found one of those?
Yep.
Wow, that's wild.
Yep. And but like from the exterior, you would never have known. So it must have been from last year, maybe a year before that.
Yeah.
So he was like, maybe he just like has always kind of like the past couple of years has just been kind of like not well.
Yeah. Have you seen the video of there's a guy that spots a doe and she's got like a field point arrow like in her butt, and he catches her. Right, and he puts her in his car, takes her to the vet.
Oh, I have seen this. Yeah,
and then she brings like a family of deer later.
Yeah.
It's fucking hilarious, man.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I guess that's what they do. Like they're like there's like a community of them, right? They don't hang out alone.
Yeah, generally, but they also don't like say like they don't have like friends. Like this doe isn't gonna hang out with the same doe. Like if they get spooked away from each other, they'll just join another herd of doe.
Yeah,
they're not like looking to hang out with necessarily the same doe. Like,
yeah.
And you'll see doe that are by themselves. They'll get like, pushed off because of like, hunting pressure or coyote or something.
Yeah.
And they'll just go do their own thing. They don't care.
What's your next hunt?
That's a good question. Oh, javelina. Javelina's, I got one more javelina hunt next weekend.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So probably.
Same spot?
Different spot.
Okay.
Yeah. This will be in 37A. So probably by the time this posts, I'll either... Well, when is this going to post?
3 weeks.
Yeah, so I'll probably have already killed my javelina.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. So so I killed a javelina in 37A. By the time this posts.
That's wild.
So on the it runs from the 9th through the 19th.
Okay.
So 10 days.
Yeah.
In 37A. So I'm pretty excited for that one. I love hunting javelina. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of fun.
No shit.
It's just like easier. It's less stressful.
Do you have to be like super quiet for them or no?
Quiet, no. You just got to stay downwind.
Okay.
Yeah, because javelina makes so much noise, like when they're like digging in roots and like, and they kind of fight with each other a little bit, like not like fight, but they're like, they'll kind of like snap at each other.
Yeah, they can barely see each other, so they bump into each other and they
So you don't really have to be all that quiet. You don't really have to stay out of sight. You can kind of just like walk right at them as long as you're downwind and just move slowly.
That's cool.
That's cool. It's fun.
All right on, man. Right on.
But yeah, I'm so excited for that. And then probably bear in the spring. We'll see.
Bear?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to get mauled by one, but I hope you get chased by one. That'd be fucking hilarious.
Arizona bears are scared of people.
Are they?
Yeah.
I remember in Pennsylvania, man, you'd see big, fat black bear.
Yeah.
Oh, fat black bear.
Well, New Jersey, there's more bear per capita than anywhere else in the United States.
Yeah.
It's freaking wild.
You know what, man? Like, New Jersey gets a bad rap. It's a beautiful state. It's fucking beautiful, man. Pennsylvania is a beautiful state, but you drive through it and you'll see some the dark side of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Where like there used to be like a mine and it looks like you see nothing but beautiful forest and then it looks like somebody took a razor blade and just fucking chopped it all off. Like it just fucking bare and nothing will grow there anymore. I think there's a town in Pennsylvania where there's still an active fire in a mine under it and nothing grows there. Yeah, nothing grows. They've tried to flood it. They've tried all kinds of, it's still like smoldering.
Yeah, there's that like pit in like Russia or some shit, right?
It's one in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's wild. That's
nothing
really
grows
cool.
there. Yeah.
It's kind of scary.
Fuck yeah, it's scary. Yeah, they try to put it out all kinds of ways.
It's like a natural gas seep or something and it just stays lit.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of shit. Like we've tried to destroy this planet in a lot of different ways, and it's just hidden because no one
we'll
talks
never
about
destroy this planet.
No.
Have you seen that thing? There's a Neil deGrasse Tyson like interview where he's talking about if you were to take out like I can't remember what he says like X amount of tons of Earth every second, how long would it take for the Earth to be gone? And it's still like millions of years.
Yeah.
And it's like tons of like Earth.
Yeah.
You'd have to remove every second. And it still takes millions of
wow.
years. Like there's a lot of this Earth where the Earth is going to outlive us.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I think it was George Carlin said that the only reason we exist because the Earth wants plastic.
Fair enough.
Yeah, man. But no, cool, man. Anyway, I'm trying to talk as many black belts into doing the AGF tournament. So if you sign up, I'll sign up. I know Carlos is going to sign up.
Carlos who? Oh, Carlos.
Yeah, Carlos. And I'm trying to get all the black belts in my academy to do it.
Yeah, I think a couple of the guys, Ramsey and I were talking about doing it. I was like,
Ramsey finally came to my academy. I was honored.
When he walked in, I was like, I can't believe he made it. Because he's told me so many times, like, because on Friday nights, it's like, that's kind of like our off night at Paul's, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to AEM. Come through. Yeah. He's like, all right, maybe.
You know what we should do? We should go like send somebody to pick his ass up.
Just grab him.
Yeah, because he's around here somewhere.
I pity that fool.
I might get Dan to pick his ass up.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're going.
Yeah, so. Dan was saying that he wants to start coming out to you guys on Fridays again.
Nice,
like
man.
They used to.
Yeah. No, Friday nights have been fucking great. As a matter of fact, like one time we had like 22 people on the mat on a Friday. I was like, where the fuck is everybody?
Yeah.
You know, Fridays are fucking good, man.
Yeah, I love coming there on Fridays.
Yeah.
We just need more rolling.
We just
I don't want to hear your voice.
I'll start doing the fun Friday. I just don't want I get 3 days to teach my curriculum. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to get it in. It's hard. And I don't want to, shortchange guys just because I have visitors. I don't want to shortchange guys for, not learning the shit they paid to learn.
Fuck them. They should show up.
No, they show up. But I only get 3 days.
Yeah.
And then we get 2 days of Nogi. And Patrick, man, fucking Patrick's doing a great job.
Is he?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I've heard good things about his teaching. I've never seen it, though.
When he first started, it was like, I don't know about that guy, but man,
it's tough. Like anybody who's like either really small, really big, or really tall.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, that's a tough coach because it's like, there's the way that they learn is going to be really different than like the vast majority of the people because there's so much different size-wise. One
thing I don't hear Patrick ever say is this is the way I do it.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
Yeah.
Like this is the way it's done.
Yeah.
Right? That's how he teaches. I'll sit there and I'll listen to his teaching. I was like, man, I got to step my game up.
Yeah.
Because he's really good.
Is he?
Yeah, he's really good. He's super technical. He showed me a pass that's just like so stupid and easy, but I've been hitting it on a lot of people.
I'm always like, this is the way all the idiot old school guys do it. Yeah. And this is the way it works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always tongue in cheek, but there are a lot of techniques that I like the closed guard armbar that everyone's taught. Have you ever hit an armbar like that?
Not on somebody who knows what they're doing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a good way to like learn how to armbar, but it's not how armbars are usually implemented.
Yeah.
Right. So, and there's a couple of techniques that I've like, this is how we've always been taught.
I've hit more arm bars from mount than I have from guard.
Yeah.
And that's hard to set up.
Or side control. Like that spin around arm bar. That's a really high percentage one.
It's high percentage and it's very old school. Mm-hmm. We were doing that as a warm up.
Yeah.
And then Paul showed a lot of, it worked out really well because Paul showed like a lot of detail in it last night. And that was so much fun, man. Mark getting promoted.
Yeah.
And I
don't think I've ever heard him talk.
Because he doesn't, man. He doesn't like crowds. He's not an asshole. Yeah. He's a really cool dude. Like you get him talking, he'll get you laughing because he's just that guy. And I feel
like that's a lot of like cops and firefighters.
Yeah.
I think I really like jive with that like almost gallows humor.
Yeah.
It's a little darker humor generally.
For sure. I had a buddy who's a Gilbert cop, and he said they went to a call similar to what happened at next door to Dan and Andrea's where the guy passed away and he never got visitors, so nobody knew.
He started decaying and it's like, what's that smell?
Well, that dude died in his hot tub.
Ooh. Ugh.
So when they found him, he
was cooked.
He was decomposing and cooking, right?
Ugh.
So they called him Stew.
Oh my god! I know what that smell is.
Bro.
I can smell that smell.
Can you imagine that in a hot tub? Oh,
that would be fucking horrible.
So bad, dude.
Yeah.
But the gallows humor. So here's the thing. Like, if you talk to Mark, he's a very upbeat guy, big smile, always laughing, and then he'll tell you about something that he's investigating. And you're like, how do you smile after that?
Yeah.
And it's the gallows humor. You got to have it.
It's like that's how you cope with it.
Yes, it's a coping
Which is
mechanism.
funny because I watch a lot of those like those videos of like when people get pulled over and it goes wrong or whatever, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And like they'll be like sometimes it's when the cop is being like it's a bad cop,
right,
and sometimes it's like when it's like an idiot person getting pulled over.
Yeah,
it's all sorts of different stuff. But like a lot of times it's like this guy's getting pulled over for fucking nothing.
Sure,
and they're like the guy will like laugh at with the cops saying like that like you know, like kind of like a half laugh or whatever. And
Yeah.
the cop's like, you think this is funny? And it's like, you know exactly what that was.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they're uncomfortable and they don't know what else to do.
That's
it's like,
it,
it's
yeah.
how they're coping with like this insane situation that you put them in.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I don't, it's like, you know what that is.
Yeah,
Like, I hate when people are like, what, you think this is a laughing matter? It's like, you know why they're laughing.
Yeah. There was one guy, he was, I can't remember what it was. Like he was dealing with these cops and like there was a guy who was like a sergeant. He was de-escalating stuff.
Yeah.
And then, cause they knew like they didn't really have anything on this guy. They were hoping he'd give up his ID because it was like the holy grail. Apparently they need an ID, but one of the other lackey cops said something and this guy just fucking went off, dude. He fucking went off on him and F-bombing him and stuff like they had nothing on. They had to let him go.
Yeah.
Right. So the guy that they let go actually put the video on YouTube.
Yeah.
So he got all the body cam footage and shit like that. So as he's leaving, the guy that said it was like, yeah, I fucked up. I shouldn't have said that.
Yep.
And the other guy is like, I was kind of hoping we could be friendly and he ask him to not put this on YouTube. Like that's all on the video. That's all on the video.
Sorry,
yeah.
bud.
Yeah. But you know, but that's just the thing. Like in the heat of the moment, man, it's like, some people just need to be right, you know, and you got this other guy who's like, he has de-escalated the situation. All you got to do is shut the fuck up. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's got it. Right. Yeah. And unfortunately the guy did.
You know, the funny thing about that is like, so like, I think I have a pretty solid reputation as like someone who likes to argue. Right. Right.
You like to shit on things. That's your shtick. You like to shit on things.
I like to be pedantic and I like to argue, but like
pedantic, that's a great word.
Spell it.
Yeah, good luck with that.
No, but but the reality is like I watch a lot of argumentation, like real arguments, like debate, like real stuff like that, and like some of the things that I notice and that I've learned from like being that kind of person is that like the guy who gets emotional is the guy who loses.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And people who don't know that, they think they're in the right and they start getting frustrated and angry because, you know, some guy is just not, you know, responding to what they want, the way they want or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're having this argument between like, you know, they're arguing with a cop or a cop's arguing with a guy or whatever it is. Right. And then you just don't realize like how fucking stupid you look once you turn into the emotional one.
Right. Yeah. There was a guy, he's a YouTube guy. Anyway, he used to be a mob guy, and now he went to prison. And,
I know
who
who you're talking about. Yeah.
And he talks about, I listen to him because he talks a lot about negotiation.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy what he says. And he talks about what in the mafia, they used to do these negotiations where they sit down like with each other and they're like, they can't go to the cops, right? So they go to their higher ups and be like, hey, I got a beef with this guy. Can you help me resolve it?
Yeah.
And he said, if you get emotional and start cussing, you've already lost.
Yep.
If you call the other guy a liar, you've already lost.
Yep.
So you've got to figure out a way to keep like the emotion down and get everyone else to believe but never say that this guy's lying.
Right.
And I'm like, whoa, that's a trick, right?
Yeah.
Because you know you're right and you know what I mean? Like you want to just mother F this guy
too, because like I like to like argue like, you know, the easy topics like religion. Like with people like on the internet.
Don't do it.
But like a lot of those people like hold those beliefs really tight to the chest. Dude. And they will argue with you and then they will be like, you know, you're a fucking retard. What do you they'll start getting mad and start calling names. And I'm just like, if you like accept that like he's calling you a name and then like want to like, you can take it one of two ways. You can like, all right, no, you're a fucking retard or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Or you could just be like, you can just sidestep it altogether. Be like, I don't care what you call me.
Right. Yeah.
Who the fuck are you? Like, you're not anybody I give a fuck about your opinion. Right. So it's like, my favorite thing is like to have someone get all heated and start calling me names and just like continue to press the matter. Cause it's like, they're fucking mad and they're trying to get me to respond in a like, you know, fuck you, no, fuck you, you know, that kind of thing.
But isn't it true, like in everyday life, like if somebody says, don't fucking listen to the guy, he's a fucking, I start listening to that person. Yeah. Like if enough people tell me, don't fucking listen to that guy, I'm like, what does he got to say?
I love listening to people that I don't agree with.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
Yeah, and well, for one, it's like I want to have my opinion. Like I like to see guys who share my opinion, who are arguing with people who don't, and I want to see how they respond to criticisms of their different beliefs.
That's fun.
Because I want to make sure that's like, it's, if you don't test your own beliefs, like, how do you know that they're right?
Well, because the internet says you're right.
Oh,
if you're on the same,
true.
if you're on the right page. No, but I like what you're saying there, because like, have you ever had somebody like just not completely change your belief, but make you be like, oh, that kind of makes sense, or I can see why you would think that way.
Yeah,
that's still a move in the right direction, right? Because you're still making an argument for your beliefs, but you're open to their opinion, right?
Yeah.
And okay, I can see, like, you know, you talk about the religion thing, like, it's hard to argue with somebody who grew up in it,
right?
Because that's all they've known.
Well, there's a lot of compartmentalization with a lot of people's different beliefs, like, or where, like, you know, they'll hold a belief, but when you walk them through like the logic, it's like they don't actually hold that belief. I mean, that's how I like to like work through that stuff. Like, if you do it step by step and you don't let them compartmentalize it, like you walk them down the path instead of like teleporting from, like, you know, here's my logical side and then here's my feelings side, right? Or emotional side. Yeah. You can kind of, that no one's ever gonna, not no one, but like most people don't ever admit it, but at least you kind of get them thinking. Like, there's definitely, with jiu-jitsu, it's kind of funny because like, I think jiu-jitsu is like the physical manifestation of like what, like, being a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Like testing your beliefs, right? Like
in a debate.
Right? Because that's what jiu-jitsu, like, a lot of places you have like say karate, right? You don't really spar, like, not like 100% where you're like fighting somebody, like,
you get brain damage.
Yeah, you can't do that, right? Or, I mean, it's gonna be karate guys be like, yeah, we do. We spar.
Well, no, they do, but you can't. I mean, it's in a controlled fashion where you're not going to fuck each other up.
Right.
I mean, and jiu-jitsu, we're letting go at a tap. So it's the equivalent of that.
We go to 100%.
Yeah.
Like, you can 100% fight somebody and it stops at the tap, right? Yeah. But what that means is, like, if someone's like, this is how, like the armbar thing, right? This is how you do an armbar. And then you go and you try and you try and you try and you're like, you keep trying, you keep testing that armbar technique and it just doesn't work. It's like, we're always testing our techniques, right? It doesn't live in a vacuum of like of belief. Like, I believe this armbar works, but I've never tested it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
So like, there's a lot of like people like even like in the jiu-jitsu community where I've had, like, you know, online arguments or debates or with whatever, and it's just like, it's kind of funny, like those guys that are like, they're like brown belts or black belts, and it's like, you don't realize, like, jiu-jitsu is like that. Like, you're not testing your mental beliefs, but you test jiu-jitsu. Like, that's one of the cool things about jiu-jitsu is we get to test techniques 100%.
Yes.
Which you don't get with a lot of martial arts.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, you know, like, this shit works because you've tested it, but you don't have that with you're not testing your beliefs. You know, and it's just like, it makes me laugh a little bit. Irony.
Yeah. I've known people, I've known a couple of people, like, and if you talk to them, like, you know, they're very, I hate the word religious, but they're very, like, they're
dogmatic.
They're very dogmatic and like big time into their faith, right? And a lot of them are like non-denominational Christian who will, like, you know, hold their hands up in the air and sing to the skies and all that stuff, right? And then you think, whoa, they're into it, like, they're devoted, right? And they do a lot of stuff with the church and they help out as much as they can, and they'll bring like other people in and they'll like have like prayer groups at their house and stuff like that. And I've known a couple where, you know, we start talking and they kind of let their guard down and they're like, yeah, I have a big problem with the, you know, like, what my beliefs. And they're like, whoa, what are you talking about? And some of them have lost a loved one, you know, and one of them was like, you know, it was a mom and daughter that I knew, and the dad had died, and he was a pastor, and he was like, dude, every holiday was like a day of mourning. Because, like, I mean, this guy was like, you know, super pastor. Like, you know, he rescued a baby on Groundhog Day or something. You know what? There was always something. He always did this on Valentine's Day, and he was like super thoughtful. And that's all I knew about. I never met the guy. Yeah. And, you know, and I was talking to her, the mom, about, you know, like, religion and faith and stuff like that. And she goes, yeah, I got a really big problem with it. And I was like, whoa, what's the problem? She goes, you tell me why the world's a better place without my husband.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah, but the problem is, like, yeah, I mean, I get a lot of people kind of like lose their faith because of loss, but like that's still an appeal to emotion.
Sure, yeah.
Which isn't a rational reason to like to lose your belief in a religion.
But I guess the biggest issue that I had was like, is and I don't know if this is true. I'm just thinking, like, is it a front? Like, are they just putting up a front because that's like their safe space and their community that they need to be a part of?
There's definitely a lot of people that like that. I feel like, you know, a lot of different like there's definitely some more isolated religions.
Yeah,
I'll say, like, where like their entire community is built in this religion, and to leave said religion is to lose your community.
Yeah.
So a lot of those people like go through the strokes, go through the motions, right? But like don't believe at all.
I think the beautiful part of those the religions, the beautiful part is the how do you put it? Like what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the traditions.
Yeah.
And coming together in a traditional way, like especially the older religions. And like, I think that's cool.
That comes out of like a lot of different like jiu-jitsu has that.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's just a community that has a bunch, like we have a lot of tradition in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. You
know, like think about like the belt promotion. Right. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I love it.
Everyone kind of shows up to support this guy. Like it's like Mark getting his black belt, like, has no real effect on anybody else's life.
Not really.
But they all know
not
that,
even
like,
his.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. Right.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of fabric you're wrapping around your waist. Right.
Yeah.
But all those people are still showing up to support this guy. You know, getting, you know, achieving something.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of emotional, you know, cool connections you create from that. And it's just, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of like, you know, cool tradition that, and it's secular, 100% secular. There's no religion in, I mean, there's definitely some schools are a little bit more dogmatic about their traditions in jiu-jitsu, but generally it's very, it's secular, right?
Yeah.
It's not like there is a literal religion.
Yeah, and speaking of promotions, man, our next belt promotion is going to be fire, dude. Like, we got brown belts, we got purple belts, we got some blue belts coming up. It's going to be fucking cool.
What's the date?
Right now we're looking at April 6th.
So right after Pans.
Right after Pans, yeah.
Perfect.
So, so I want to do April, October, because I think I want August to be its own thing. You know, I want August 15th. The day we opened to be like just a party. We do something.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So I don't want it to be a promotion and be like, oh, I have to be there. I want people to want to be there. You know? So, but anyway, my batteries are dying, and we've been going for almost 2 hours. Yeah. But no, this was cool, man. Good conversation today. Yeah. Normally I'm very angry and I just want to win an argument against you. So this worked out really well. I can do it.
You can.
I still have time.
I have a lot of endurance. You'll just be like, I am too tired. I am too tired to continue this conversation.
Yeah, Tojo will out asshole me.
But feel free.
Yep,
I'm on the internet.
I'm trying.
People.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody for all of the comments that we've been getting, good and bad. All of this helps the algorithm pick us up and show us to other people. So please keep them coming. Like and subscribe. If you hate the podcast, please leave us a 1-star review. If you love it, leave us a 5-star review. But please subscribe. We are
nowhere in between.
We are 30 subscribers away from having 1,000 on YouTube.
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm very happy about that. Yeah. We are 300 away from having 5,000 on Instagram.
Okay.
So we're growing. I mean, it's not exponential, but it's slow and positive growth. We're getting more than 12 listeners. We have 16 now. So that's pretty cool. And I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank BioPro. If you're not using it, you got to get on it. Bioprotein Technologies. Check them out online and get $30 off your first order when you use the promo code Foxcast. I've been taking it for about 4 months, man. I love the stuff. It helps me so much with my recovery, especially at 51. I need all of the help I can get. I want to shout out a couple people. Number one is Tojo. Absolutely. No, I want to shout out Roll Union. I want to give a shout out to Control Physical Therapy. Give a shout out to my boy JT. JT's Curry Wagon. If you have an event happening in Arizona, hit up JT's Curry Wagon. He'll come out and support. It's for sale, but It's worth the price, man. He feeds the hell out of you.
Yeah, it's a lot of food.
It's a lot of food. And if you've never had JT's curry, you got to have it.
It's the fucking best. It is the best.
Absolutely. Looking forward to talking to Adrian Nez.
Yeah,
next week,
be a good one, man.
Next Sunday.
I'm excited for that one,
dude. I can't wait. I'm actually, I'm doing my research. I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But everybody,
just talk to Jake,
bro. Yeah, no shit. I call Jake. But everybody that talks about Adrian says that he's just a freaking cool dude. So I can't wait, man. And anyway, we got some great stuff coming up. But yeah, check us out on Instagram. Follow Tojo at just Tojo.
Underscore Tojo.
Just underscore Tojo.
Start an argument. Feel free.
Hey.
I won't get emotional.
We are going to have a shitting on the comments segment someday. So please keep the comments coming. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tojo.
Bye.
This episode of the BJJ Foxcast is brought to you by BioPro. BioPro is an all-natural alternative to prescription human growth hormone, which aids in recovery, anti-aging, metabolism, libido, immunity, skin health, cognition, sleep, and stress. Just 1 vial per day provides a substantial boost to all of these growth factors. Okay, so that's what they want me to say. Here's what I know as an aging grappler. I've been using BioPro Plus and the nighttime variant, BioPro Plus Cortisleep, for several months, and it feels like I've grown a third lung. My gas tank is noticeably bigger, my recovery is faster, and I'm back on the mats much quicker, not just between training sessions, but between rounds. Now you can get $30 off your first order of BioPro when you use the code FOXCAST at www.bioproteintech.com. That's code FOXCAST for $30 off your first order at www.bioproteintech.com. Thank you, BioPro.